All right, welcome to Women in Science and Engineering. This is our second seminar of the semester. The Women in Science and Engineering, WiSE, is a program at Eastern Florida State College committed to the recruitment, retention, and advancement of underrepresented groups pursuing careers in science and engineering. WiSE is open to all students. WiSE includes seminars like the one you're attending today with guest experts, workshops on careers, resume building, and graduate schools. Next semester, we have a workshop coming up on resume building, specifically how to write resumes for STEM careers, which is a little bit different than most other professions. Networking for future schools and employment. Local excursions. We have one coming up on November 15th I'll talk about. Career mentoring and undergraduate research. November 15th, which is a Friday. You have that Monday, November 11th off. That Friday, November 15th, you have an opportunity, if you would like to join us, to head over to UCF to visit behind the scenes at some of their science research labs. You will have a short talk from the undergraduate research office at UCF, as well as the STEM advancement office at UCF, telling you about a summer research program fully paid for at UCF, as well as STEM scholarships for new students coming to UCF from Eastern Florida State College. After lunch, we will head over to the CSI exhibit in Orlando right now, where you will work with some of the other members of the field trip party to solve a heinous crime that has been committed in Orlando. All current students at Eastern Florida State College are eligible to attend. If you are interested, the deadline to sign up is October 22nd, and you will email our Associate Provost, Dr. Ross Lanowski, at the email. You can also let me know. My name is Dr. Ashley Spring, and Dr. Mary Ross Lanowski, the two of us run the WiSE program here at the college. Our website is at the bottom. Our guest speaker today is Ann Spellman, soon to be Dr. Ann Spellman, who is with Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation, talking today about marine mammalogy. Next month on Tuesday, October 15th, we have Dr. Darlene Flattery, who will be talking about alternative energy and chemistry. And then Tuesday, November 19th, we have Robin Pittman, who is Vice President of Operations for Health First, recently combined with Nina as well, making them an even larger group, talking about health administration. If you have any questions, any ideas, any needs, any wants, please come to myself or Dr. Ross Lanowski. We are here to answer your questions and supply for you to help you advance in the STEM field. Without further ado, here's our guest speaker, Ann Spellman. Have a stage opening there. I just hit enter. Go down, open. Well, thank you for having me. This is my second time coming to WiSE, and I'd like to show you what I do for a living, why I think I have the best job in the world, and what I had to do to get there. And many of the things that I had to do to get where I am are things you can actually apply to the field that you choose to go in, or help you decide what field you might decide to go in. How many people know what they want to do when they finish school? Not really a lot. How many people actually know what the job is that they think they want to do? Okay, I'm one of those people that wanted to do what I've done since I was very small. And I knew exactly what the job was because I spent a lot of time volunteering, learning about it, networking, getting with mentors, and really learning what the job is. So I wasn't really shocked when I ended up in a situation like this, in a tank with 17 dolphins, as a thank you for helping do something totally unrelated to swimming with dolphins. So many times people will look at a job and they see something that looks glamorous, that looks fun, but they don't realize that what they see is just the superficial part of the job. So I'm going to show you what my job entails. I'm a marine mammal biologist with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. I work out of a field station here in Melbourne called the Indian River Lab,
where for the last 20 years I have run the marine mammal section, primarily dealing with manatees, some whales and some dolphins. Okay, so my background, I'm a marine mammal biologist, but by education, I'm a marine biologist. So marine biology encompasses a large number of fields, and in my case, I went for the one that most people think of when they think marine biology, the big warm fuzzies, the whales, the dolphins, the manatees. I have 20 years with the Fish and Wildlife Commission as of this past January. Still love what I do, feel that I chose the right career, but like I said, I put a lot of time into deciding what it was I wanted to do and learning exactly what that job entailed. I work with manatees, but I've also worked with right whales and dolphins and other large whales, primarily in more of a CSI context than in what you would see at something like SeaWorld. So we deal a lot with mortalities and what we learn from that and how we use that to protect marine mammals. My education, I got my bachelor's and my master's degree here in Melbourne at Florida Institute of Technology, so quite some time ago. I volunteered with researchers while I was in school, particularly other students, master's students, doctoral students, to kind of get a taste of what it was like to do field work, because what I wanted to be was a field scientist. I didn't want to be a white coat sit behind a microscope scientist, at least not all the time. And that was extremely important because not only did I learn field techniques and get to spend time out in the field, I also got to meet all the professors in the university. And when the time came for me to get a master's degree, I applied and was given a teaching assistantship, so I actually got my master's degree for free. Now, never underestimate what it's like to come out of school with no debt. It's very important. I have 2 years of master's level forensic work at UCF, and then I switched to go into the PhD program in conservation biology, which now that Dr. Spring has said it, I guess I have to graduate sometime this winter and get my doctorate. I study manatee physiology and thermoregulation here in Brevard County. And I have to apologize, I sound a little rusty because I'm kind of having an asthma issue today. Other experiences, I've spent 25 years working with the Marine Mammal Stranding Network, where we deal with both live and dead animals, but primarily dead animals. So when you see people on TV working with dolphins, the majority of them don't spend all their time working with the live animals. We learn a tremendous amount of information from animals that wash up on the beach. And if you like CSI type work or challenging research type work, this is definitely an area to get into. If you don't like things that smell bad, if you don't like rough conditions weather-wise, long days, dirty conditions, this would not be the type of job you'd want to get. I also have 6.5 years as a veterinary technician, which comes in handy because I work with a lot of veterinarians as part of my job when I do rescue work. I need to be able to assess an animal's condition, relay that to a professional veterinarian, and then take the necessary steps to safely and stably transfer that animal to a facility that's waiting to take care of it. I also spent some time during my doctoral research studying sea turtles. Never underestimate getting involved in areas outside of your field, particularly like in an area like conservation biology. Conservation biology looks at economics, it looks at politics, it looks at the environment, it looks at many, many issues that work together to try and protect living systems among other interests, and primarily human interests. Okay, so the best part of my job is the variety of things I get to do. I recently hired someone, and she said, when I asked her, do you have any questions for me? She said, what can I expect a typical day to be like? Now, when you're looking for a job, you need to decide, do you want a job that has consistency? Every day you're expected to do the same thing. You go to work at 8 in the morning, you leave at 5 o'clock, you get your weekends off. If that's the type of job you want to avoid a job like mine. I don't know what my day is going to be like. This morning started out where I had to come in and start training a new person, attend a meeting with other scientists around the state, followed by data entry, followed by lunch occasionally, and then followed by another meeting and taking that meeting on my way to come here and do a presentation. That's a pretty dry day. A typical day for us is you get called in the morning and you've got an animal that's stranded on the rocks up at Port Canaveral. And you have to get up there and get that animal out. You have to know how to assess the animal. You have to know what type of equipment's available. You have to know whether that animal needs to be transported or whether that animal is actually okay and you can do this on your own. That could be followed by a call to deal with a mating herd. So if you look up in the top of the screen up here, I'm not really sure where this little thing is. The yellow button. Oops, that's probably not. Okay. I'm not going to touch that because I'm afraid I'm going to turn that off. Okay, so up here, this is a mating herd situation. We get called quite a bit. You can see I'm standing up close and personal with these animals. That's my favorite part of the job, is I get to work with some of the most incredible endangered species in the world. Very few people get to do this particular job. It's not an ego thing to me. I just realize how fortunate I am that I live in a place that has these animals, that I was afforded an education that put me in the right position, and I was in the right place at the right time. None of these things happen by chance. So one of the things I'd like you to take home today is if you think that just by getting a degree you're going to be ready when you get out of school, you have a lot of things to learn. And I'm hoping to share with you what you need to do to put yourself in the best position to get the job of your dreams or a job you're interested in. So some days are like this. These are some of the best days. This is a baby manatee I got to feed that we rescued. Some days are like this. You can see it's not day, it's nighttime, and that's a rescue that took place at around 10 o'clock at night. I cannot make plans with this job. The best way to screw up your plans is to make them in the first place. Things come in all the time. Unless you're out of the country or at a wedding or a funeral, you're expected to be available for this type of job. So if you like work like this, you'd be great at something like being an ER doctor or a nurse or somebody that delivers babies, somebody that likes variety and surprise. If you're someone that likes a nice level, I can count on having Monday through Friday at work and then the weekends off, holidays off, seeing my family, then you'd want to look for a job that's a little more subdued than field work. One day I was called up to the port. This animal is an animal in Port Canaveral where the locks are. And this particular animal was wearing a belt and no tag, and my job was to get in the water and swim until I could tag this animal so that another crew of scientists could exchange the tag for a permanent satellite tag. This particular animal came in on a Saturday. He looks like he's wrapped up in tinfoil like a baked potato. This was during the 2010 winter when we had all that cold. We worked on average 80 hours a week for a period of about 2.5 months. We barely saw daylight, and it's not like you get paid extra to do this necessarily, so there are certain considerations of jobs you should understand. Working more doesn't necessarily mean making more, and doing jobs that you enjoy does not necessarily mean making a lot. We get to use all different types of equipment. I'm not flying in this one. I'm actually the passenger. We have airboats, ATVs. We use kayaks in our job quite a bit. If you look in the parking lot and see a truck with a big yellow banana kayak, that's my truck, and I constantly hear people saying, you have the best job ever. What they don't realize is I have to use that kayak to get into very shallow water to get carcasses or to paddle among alligators to get the injured animals. Looks pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. My mother didn't think it was pretty cool. We do necropsy work, so we have I wouldn't say a very low sense of smell. We just have a very high tolerance for this. We deal with a lot of death in our job. It may seem like, wow, that's horrible. We've learned to compartmentalize, realizing that we didn't kill these animals. We're trying to find out what did kill these animals so that we can use this information to protect these animals in the future, to affect change, to help management with regulation based on solid science. Now, you might think, well, a lot of this stuff doesn't look like something that will appeal to women, and I realize there are both males and females in the audience today. Believe it or not, more women are going into school for science than men are now, and there are more women in marine biology than ever before. They outnumber men considerably. When I first started at Florida Tech, I started with 149 other students, and 11 were female. Now, when you go to the majority of the students in marine biology are female. They tend to be very good at this work. They tend to be very good at necropsy work. And if you like a good mystery and you like CSI type stuff, this is a fantastic field to go into. I can't imagine really doing anything else. We have really good days too where we release animals. We're responsible for tracking them. So when manatees go out from rehabilitation, they get tracked with a satellite. We monitor them for about a year to make sure they're reintroducing properly to the wild. If not, we pull them back in and we start all over again. And like I said, any given day you can end up in any different thing. This is a NASA helicopter. Part of my job takes me up to Kennedy Space Center where my staff and I have clearance to do our job. They afford us some help with some of their equipment when we need it. And like I said, every day is different. Do you want a job that has variety, or do you want a job that consistently have the same thing? It's not to say one is better than the other, but it helps to know what you like. If you're someone who doesn't like to be out of your comfort zone, I wouldn't pick a job like this. But if you're someone that likes a challenge and something new every day, this would definitely be a field for you. Now, what it requires, just so you know, is a good, strong background in science, math, most of your education. The only thing I can honestly say I didn't use when I was in school was calculus, up until about 2 weeks ago, and then I realized calculus really would have been helpful, but it's a little too late for me. So unexpected benefits of my job. You would think that when you work in one field, it may not overlap into other fields, but my job is taking me to the Space Center, where I've been invited to speak to astronauts, space workers. It's been a really cool opportunity for me because I think that's an amazing job to have. Because of the location of my field station, I'm one of the few biologists in the state that regularly gets to go to Kennedy Space Center. And I've been able to watch quite a few launches thanks to our relationship with them from up close and personal. I have worked with things like crocodiles. This turned up on a friend's lawn, and when you work for the Fish and Wildlife Commission, everyone assumes that you work with all animals. Well, I don't really work with alligators. I mean, I work with alligators around me, but I don't work with alligators. So when I got this call, a friend said, I have a crocodile in my front yard. This is India Atlantic. And I said, there are no crocodiles in India Atlantic. He said, I have a crocodile sitting next to my mailbox. And he went and caught it with a cast net and gave it to me. And I drove around town for a few hours trying to figure out what to do with this crocodile. I've been called in for things like large whale disentanglement. One of my assistants, this guy right here, went on to run the country's large whale disentanglement team. He started here at WiSE when this was BCC back about 20 years ago. I hired him when he was 19 years old when he was just transferring over to UCF. He worked with me for about 7 years, went on to run a field station of his own for about a year and a half, and then was picked up by NOAA, which is the agency that oversees large whale disentanglement, and was trained to run the entire program. So the way he found me was at a conference. He went as a student to a marine mammal conference in Orlando at SeaWorld. He wanted to volunteer, and somebody said, you need to see that lady over there. He came up and he said, my name is Jameson Smith, and I want to work with you. And that was probably the smartest thing he ever did, because I thought, okay, here's someone who shows me initiative. He's fun. He's a pleasant type person, and he's willing to learn. And what he did was come and work with me part-time until the position became full-time. He finished his degree. He made sure he networked. He went to conferences. He went and did a lot of things that I'm going to go over with you that put him in a position to get a really, really cool job. Very few people in the world get to do what he does. Sometimes we get called in for seals and sea lions. It helps to be flexible because these are very different. Unlike manatees, these animals bite. We have sea turtle biologists in our agency, and I try and take an opportunity whenever I can to learn other people's jobs and to volunteer. You never know where it might lead or how it might help you in your job. Okay, so tips to succeed. These are the things that I follow. 1, do your homework and learn from it. Don't go to school just because it's a requirement. You're here, you're spending part of your life, trading the time, hours in your life, and I dare say probably quite a bit of money to get an education. Don't be here unless you want to be here. Make it count. Okay, think about what am I learning and is this going to help me in the future? If you have the opportunity to take electives that have some meaning. Basket weaving is great if you're planning on being a basket weaver. Badminton is great if you're planning on being a badminton player. If you want to go into something serious, make sure you're taking classes and electives that actually show that you are serious about it. So if you were going into science and you had the opportunity to take electives, I would say take things like geographic information systems. Basically, it's a mapping program that allows you to put layers and layers of data together. Make sure you're fluent in computers. You have to know another language, particularly Spanish. And with technology, it never hurts to know Chinese. You may not think to take things like this, but when I hire students out of school, and usually I hire entry-level people, I look to see how they spent their free time. If they spent their free time just having fun, taking sailing, well, sailing might not be a bad thing for our job. But if they took something, dance or cheer, that's really not going to help you as a scientist. That's not going to bode favorably with me. I'm going to look for the person that took something that was meaningful with regards to their future. Think marketable resume. What can you do and what can you add to your resume? And your resume should be curtailed to the job you're looking for. So if you want to do animal work, you shouldn't be working at TGI Fridays unless you have no other choice. You should be doing things like working at the zoo, working for a veterinarian, getting that marketable experience that actually has some kind of push when you're competing with other people for a job. Education, very important. It depends on what you want to do, how far you need to go. I didn't need to get a PhD. I wanted to get a PhD. Most people that go for PhDs in science are academia or research. I'm more towards the research, not necessarily for my job, but I had the opportunity to do it for free, and I thought that might be something as I get older that will benefit me to have. Your skills, your talents, and your experience. Think, what am I doing that's going to further my career? That's not to say you can't have skills and hobbies and talents that are just a nice escape from school or from work. But think about the things that you do, and can they be used to further your career or advance your career or your chances of getting that job? Network. This cannot be underestimated. Who you know links you to other people who are advertising for jobs. To give you an idea, I just hired a young woman from Kentucky who came down during the winter time to be part of our Right Wheel intern team. They didn't have enough for her to do, and we had manatees dying across the state from a red tide on the southwest coast to an unknown mortality event called UME here in Brevard County. If you've watched the news or read a paper, I'm sure you've seen that. They sent her instead over to our PATH lab in St. Petersburg, where she got to help them process all of the animals that died and learn very key skills. So when the time came to hire someone, I had 155 applicants, and of those, I pulled 4 that were actually rather qualified. She was on the top of the list because she knew people that I know, and they could assess her abilities and her experience and her training firsthand. I knew those people. They know my job. They were able to tell me how this person would fare in that particular position. The other 3 people I knew through other people as well. She just happened to have just that much more that made her the person that I wanted for the job, and I hired her, and she started last week. Career shadowing and internship. When I look at a resume, I look to see not only that the person kept themselves occupied, meaning they know how to work a job. Okay, so any job is actually important. But I also want to know that they've taken every opportunity to volunteer to get experience. So if you're doing animal stuff, the Wildlife Rehab Center, the zoo, the shelters, Marine Resources Council, anything that deals with animals and their environment would put you above somebody who basically just went to class. And that person could have a 4.0. They could have a perfect grade point average, but if they've got no experience and no marketable skills, the person with the lower grade point average that has real life experience is going to be the person on the top of my list. Now, keep in mind, not everybody interviews the same way and not everybody looks for the same thing. It helps to know who your target audience is when you're applying for a job. Okay, read lots and lots of relative topics, but also read lots and lots of things out of your comfort zone. It increases your vocabulary, it increases your knowledge. It also makes you a lot more aware of current topics that may actually affect the job you're applying for. So how many people know what's going on with the Indian River Lagoon right now? Okay, so if you were a marine biology student and you actually wanted to go in marine biology, this is something you should know very well. This is something you should be following. This is something you should be learning about because this is going to be around for a while. And if you stick around here and you get any job in marine biology or in conservation biology, that's probably going to be part of your job. With some aspect of what's going on with the lagoon because it affects a very large portion of our area. Familiarity with world events. Never underestimate this. I was asked to go to Kuwait a few years ago. In 2001, I was asked to go to Kuwait with another member of the FWC team to deal with stranding after the first Gulf War. As a result of dropping oil into the Persian Gulf, large numbers of marine mammals were stranding. And what they needed was somebody that not only could deal with the strandings, but could also work with the Kuwaiti people. Well, I knew a little bit about Kuwait because my college roommate was from Kuwait. So I made sure that I knew everything I could possibly know so that when the time came, I was in the right position to go. I learned about the culture. I learned about what was expected, what I needed to do. And then my trip got canceled, unfortunately, because it was 2001, right before September 11th. And they must have known something was going on. They pulled the trip. But never underestimate knowing world events might not put you in a position that would allow you to outcompete somebody else. So if you've got a project, and we send scientists to Cuba on a regular basis, if you've got a project like that and you know Spanish, or you know the situation that's going on and you can present a better reason why you should be able to go than somebody else, you have local knowledge, all of these things benefit you and put you in a much better position. So knowing what's going on around you doesn't just mean knowing what's going on around you at BCC or Eastern Florida State College now or Brevard County. All of it's interconnected and all of it makes an impact, particularly if you're studying certain fields like technology or sciences. Attend conferences. Every professional organization has a society you can join. And as a student, you can join for a lot less than if you're an active senior member in the field. So what you do is you join that society, you read their periodicals or their journals, and when you get the opportunity to go to a conference, take it. It's a great way to learn more about the field, to learn more about the research being done in that field, to network, and really just get a sense, is this where you want to be? So if you go to an engineering conference, my guess is most engineering conferences are kind of stuffy with lots of people dressed in suits and ties. You go to a marine biology conference, and people are walking in and out of the lobby in bathing suits, attending things, and I thought, this is definitely the place I belong. These people are laid back, they're really interesting, they're really cool, and the conferences are a lot of fun. I cannot impress upon you enough how important it is to attend conferences. When I first graduated with my undergrad, I was offered a job immediately by somebody that I had met at a conference through another researcher. I didn't even need to interview, I was offered the job. I didn't take it, I stayed instead and went to school, but it impressed upon me how important it is to actually get out there and shake hands and get to know people. Put down the digital social media and actually interface with real people. That's who they hire. They don't hire the people sitting behind the little iPads and iPhones. Learn to communicate by going and actually face-to-facing with other people. Subscribe to the journal. Like I said, this will force you to read outside of your comfort level. This will also update you on what's going on. The biggest mistake I see with young people coming into science is they assume that, oh, I can do this research, and they don't realize it's already been done and done again and done again. You need to read a lot to find out where the holes are in the research, to carve your niche, to write your proposal, to get in basically into the field. It's real obvious who the naive people are when they all want to do stuff that everybody else has already done before. The only way to know what hasn't been done is to read everything you possibly can. You should never not have something to read in the field you're interested in. And now's the time to do it. Don't wait till you graduate. Be doing it while you're in school. Learn more than is expected of you to get into that position. Volunteer. Volunteering shows social awareness. Volunteering is a great way to make new friends. It's a great way to learn. It's a great way to give back. And most people wait till they're older to give. Giving back now, it just sets you up for a very, what's the word I'm looking for? A very fulfilling, thank you, a very fulfilling career. If you only go out to get a job for yourself, you'll quickly find that something may be lacking. Giving back from the start, like coming to school and speaking once you have a job, mentoring other students, these are all things you can do once you're in the field. But there's plenty of things you can be doing now before you actually enter your career. Participate, don't be a spectator. Anybody can sit by and watch. That's not how you get a job. You don't have to be obnoxious or aggressive, but you do have to be assertive and you do have to go after what you want. But first and foremost, it's important to know what it is you do want. Have realistic expectations. This is where that comes in. I get a lot of people who think that they're going to be working with Shamu as a marine biologist. You want to work with Shamu, don't bother going to college. All you have to do is basically have a ponytail, a certain look, be athletic, and you can work with Shamu. You want to be a marine biologist, you're going to go to school, you're going to study, you're going to cry a lot, you're going to take physics, you're going to have a lot of sleepless nights, you're not going to make a lot of money, you're going to work extremely hard. You're going to love what you do, if it's really what you want to do. Prioritize. If getting a job is important to you, that should come before going out and partying on the weekends. I'm a total geek. I spent the first 3 years studying my butt off in school. My final year, I didn't have a lot of classes to take, had a great GPA, and had a great time. But I prioritized from the start. I knew what was important. I was rowing while I was at Florida Tech, and it was affecting my grades, and I needed to stop and work as well to finish paying off my undergrad. And I realized the priority for me was to get a job. Those 149 students I started with, 2 of us are marine biologists. One of us is this type of marine biologist. The other one works more with a Sea Grant program, more in a educational capacity. The competition is fierce in certain fields. You need to make sure that you're up to the challenge when the time comes. How much beer you can drink, how many nights you can stay out until 4 a.m. makes no difference when it comes time to get a job. Get serious now if you want the career of your dreams. Develop talents and skills. Never stop. Never underestimate what you do and how it can affect your job. I remember spending a lot of time on the beach digging lots of holes as a kid, and my mother saying, what's that going to do for you? Believe it or not, I spend a lot of time on the beach digging a lot of holes in my job now. I spent a lot of time on a boat doing research, fixing the boat over and over again. I spent a lot of time with Habitat for Humanity putting roofs on. Believe it or not, I spend a lot of time doing a lot of those things in my job. Nobody ever told me when you became a marine biologist, you also become a mechanic and a number of other things. So any skill you have, you can apply to your job. Just think about it. You know, if you're doing something now that's not what you want to be doing, think, how can this help me with something that I do want to be doing? And then apply it. Finally, work your butt off. No one owes you anything. And what I'm seeing now coming out of school is a bunch of people that feel entitled, feel privileged, yet they don't have the skills to back up that entitled feeling. And they tend to fall flat on their faces. That's not to say everybody's like that, but just because you get a degree doesn't mean anyone owes you a job. And one of the things you're going to have to get used to real quick is most jobs are entry level. You're not going to be making a lot of money to start with. You may think, God, I'm struggling. Everybody else has so much. All those people that have so much work their way to get there. So realistically, when you got to expect to struggle for a little while, it's actually going to be one of the best times of your life when you look back at it. Okay, so anybody here want to be a marine biologist now that I've painted this? Okay, wonderful picture. Great. Okay, so education, lots of science, math, reading, and writing. I cannot impress upon you enough reading. You really need to enjoy reading because it never, ever, ever stops. You don't have to read everything in marine biology. There's a lot of other fields that play into it. There's a lot of other things you can do. And then take the time also to just read and have fun. I know for a lot of people, like, oh, what a geek, but I really do just love to read, to have fun. Internships. If you're interested in marine biology, there are internships through a lot of places, including the agency that I work for. Keep in mind, marine biology is a huge field, so you know where you want to go into marine biology. I work with 2 other marine mammal biologists, a sea turtle biologist, and about a dozen fisheries biologists. And one of those guys is a shark biologist. We also have people that study corals, harmful algal blooms, which is a big thing right now with what's going on in the river. We have people that study seagrasses, any number of things. I have a friend that's getting her PhD in jellyfish. She's a jellyfish biologist, which is actually pretty cool and actually really scary because she told me all the nutrients in the river are making for really big jellyfish. Develop marketable skills. Find out what the job requires. Look at what a job description says. And then ask yourself, if I had to apply for this job today, how many of these things would I have taken care of? How much time do I have, and can I get those other things? Call and say, you know, you can always call them and say, look, I'm not applying for this job now, but if I were to be applying for this job, you know, what things could you tell me to be pursuing in school? Find a mentor. Find someone that's willing to sit down and talk with you and give you advice. For women, when I started, there were no other women to talk to. I had to blaze my own trail. That's one of the reasons why I like to come back and talk to female students, because you've got it hard to begin with. There's going to be a lot of people that make you feel like you can't do this. That's a bunch of rubbish. Volunteering, like I said, there's so many different places you can volunteer. Very, very important. And try and spend as long a time as you can. Don't go a month here, a month there. Basically what that shows is that you really don't have the staying power. If you're going to put in the time to get a degree in marine biology, make sure that's what you want to do. It's a lot of work. Wildlife rehabilitation, zoos, veterinary clinics, places like the Environmental Learning Center down in Indian River County, all great places to get a lot of experience. Don't underestimate things like sports. Things like kayaking and swimming are great attributes to have if you're a marine biologist. I spend a lot of time doing both. Networking, professional societies, list servers. This one in particular is called MARMAM. It stands for Marine Mammal. You just have to go Google it. It'll show you how to sign up. It's free. You'll find these in many occupations. Basically, it's a place on the web where you can get information about jobs, internships, research that's being done, tremendous number of internships. And on the MARMAM site, they're all over the place, like New Zealand, the Seychelles, just fantastic places. If you have the opportunity to do it while you're young, because once you start working, you're just not going to have the time to take 3 months out of your life and do an internship. Cannot underestimate the importance of any of them. So coursework for something like marine biology. This is a great way to decide if this type of field is for you. Look and see what a degree entitles to get that degree, because if you're really bad at science and it requires all science classes, you might want to reconsider your chosen field. That's not to say that if you're really gung-ho on doing it, you can't do it. It just means you're going to have to make sure you buckle down that much harder because it may be difficult for you. So biological sciences, biology, chemistry, oceanography, any sciences you can get put in there. Genetics, molecular. There's going to be a lot of things that scare you, like organic chemistry. Don't worry, they scare absolutely everybody. Oceanography is a related field. Oceanography studies the ocean, whereas marine biology studies the life in the ocean. Some of my favorite courses were oceanography. They are so interrelated because it talks about the environment where the animals live. You cannot take one really without the other. Computer sciences. When I started 20 years ago, laptops and the computers that we have now were not even around. So I had to learn a new language from the beginning, whereas most of you have grown up with it. Hone your skills when it comes to computer sciences. Learn statistical programs, learn modeling programs, learn geographic information system programs. They're highly marketable and you'll get paid considerably more to have those skills. Technical writing, scientific and technical communication. Learn to speak proper English. No instant. Learn to write properly and learn to write with a pen. Okay, these are all things. When you're out in the field, you don't have a lot of equipment. You need to learn all these skills that a lot of people think are going the way of the dinosaur. Grammar is the biggest thing I see. If you're going to send in a resume, you have spell check. There is absolutely no excuse for grammatical incorrect or misspelled words. Okay, so I literally look at those, and if I see misspelled things, I immediately toss that because that person did not pay enough attention to detail to be a scientist. Attention to detail is key. GIS, statistics, field courses. Field courses are a lot of fun. You get to go places and learn things. I did a few of those. Electives, like I said, make them count. Don't have it be, intramural basketball, unless you're planning on becoming a basketball player, and then you probably wouldn't be taking intramural basketball. Make sure there are things that put you above and beyond somebody else competing for the same job, and competition in marine biology is fierce. And languages. I can read French. I can't speak French anymore. I really need to learn Spanish. A large portion of the state that I deal with has a lot of Spanish-speaking people. It makes my job easier to understand what they're saying to me and vice versa. So if you have a second language, take the time to hone that and make sure that your employer or the person you're applying knows that you have the ability to speak another language. It's a very marketable skill. Okay, so where do you look for jobs then if you go into marine biology? Well, universities and government, like where I work, and I used to teach here for about 5 years. I taught in the biology department. A lot of people go into academia. Those are usually people that go on for PhDs and they end up doing research and teaching. You probably should like people if you decide to go into that particular area of science because you will be dealing with a lot of students. Government, state, local, federal, international governments, fantastic places to get jobs. They are not high paying. A lot of people think, oh, you work for the government, you get a boat and a truck. I heard the other day from some guy that we get ATVs and airboats, and that's new to me because I don't have an ATV or an airboat. Government jobs are good because they do have some stability. When a lot of other people are getting laid off, most of us keep our jobs. But it's kind of a trade-off because we don't make a lot of money to begin with. So in my case, I don't even work for tax dollars. I work for a license plate, which is a trust fund. Private industry pays a lot more. Jobs are highly competitive and tend to be more about research. But you can also get jobs in NGOs, which are non-government organizations, like Save the Manatee Club, Sierra Club. They do tend to pay more. They also tend to be a lot more stressful because they tend to be special interest groups. If you like confrontation, if you like arguing with people, great job to have, and they really need some good people. Zoos and ocean areas, highly competitive to get into these, depending on what type of job you want to do. Most zoos and ocean areas don't hire marine biologists. They hire veterinarians and animal care staff, and animal care staff don't necessarily have to have biology degrees. So if you're interested in those, find out about it. Don't put yourself through stuff you don't need to go through. If you can get that job without that, then you can save yourself quite a bit of time and money. NGOs would include places like Ocean Conservancy, Sea to Shore, and Save the Manatee Club here in Central Florida. A good thing about volunteering is a lot of times you get to volunteer for these groups, and then when jobs open up, you're in a position where they know you, and you're more likely to be hired than someone from the outside. And that's actually happened a few times with my positions. If the person interned for me and we like them, when a job opens up, they're the first people we look to give the job to. Okay, desirable traits for the job. For my job in particular, strong work ethic, dedicated and detail-oriented. You are a scientist. You are going to be required to make reports to people, and they have to be accurate. A lot of people are counting on you to do it right. A strong education. We're smart. We're scientists. We're geeks. We are smart. That's just the bottom line of the requirement. You need to be smart. Okay, if you're one of those people that lopes along with life walking into walls, this probably is not the right occupation. A passion for the work. This is key because you're not going to get rich on this. You're not going to have all the glamour everyone thinks. You have to really want to do this. And I would say if you can find a job you love, you will never work a day in your life. The people that are happiest with their jobs aren't the people that make a ton of money. They're the people that actually like what they're doing. So believe it or not, teachers, firefighters, cops, biologists, the small town doctors. Those are the people that rank their satisfaction with their job the highest. And if you've got 40 years to work, 35, 40 years to work, wouldn't you rather be doing it with something you enjoy? So when you get to that point where you retire, you can look back and say, I spent every day of my life doing something that I liked to do, and I got paid for it. Not a lot, but you have to be resourceful in our job because every day is different, and you don't always have what you need to do the job. If you're creative and you like a challenge, being resourceful comes hand in hand with that. Able to communicate effectively, not just to people when you get asked to speak, but to people that have come up to you that are in a state of panic because there's an injured animal, that don't understand what's going on, that don't get that. Unlike the fire department, we don't have a fire station on every street. We have to bring in people from around the state to get the job done. You have to be able to convey to them information that educates them and calms them down and makes them understand the situation and engages them. Not necessarily entertains, but makes them want to hear more. A strong stomach, this smells really bad. And when we go home, I walk to the back of my house where the light's off and I take all my clothes off and I walk in the house because my dogs will run if I come in this house with some of the clothes that I wear during the daytime. Adventurous. I adventure race, which means I do all those extreme fun sports. And I can't tell you how many of those skills I actually use to do my job. Carrying my kayak through the forest or through certain areas to get to a manatee, trying to figure out how to get animals out of places where you can only use stretchers and ropes. If you like a challenge and you like something adventurous, biology is a fantastic field. Go-to can-do attitude. Nobody likes a naysayer or I can't do it. That's just not an option with our job. Sort of like being a fireman. It's not an option to not do it. You have to find a way. Desire to learn. If you don't like learning things, it's not a good field. You will learn every single day. My assistant likes to say every day is a school day, and she's right. Low maintenance. If you have 10 perfect nails and you have to have perfect clothes and everything that matches, this is not a job for you. Most days you're lucky if you can find clothes that is clean. You're not going to be dressed up to the nines. When our staff has to go place and get dressed up, we all have to go out and buy clothes because we're used to wearing shorts and flip-flops to work. I think that's the best part of the job, that I don't have to wear heels and stockings. Good organization skills. You're going to have to juggle a lot of stuff, and the more organized you are, the better, and I think this goes with most jobs. Endurance, long, hard hours. If you're one of those people that tires easily, think of something that doesn't tire you real easily as an occupation. Physically fit, we have to deal with heavy animals. We do a lot of swimming, a lot of kayaking, do our job. Make sure that who you are fits the type of lifestyle the job presents. And in marine biology, it's more of a lifestyle than just an occupation. Mental fortitude, you have to be mentally strong and have a thick skin. You will deal with a lot of people that don't agree with what you're doing. You still got to do it. Team-oriented yet independent. My team works together to do rescues, but frequently we are doing things by ourselves. You have to be able to function on both levels. Fearless. I had somebody ask me recently during an interview for a sea rescue show, what do you do about all the alligators? I'm like, we just don't think about it. We do our job. It's the snakes that scare us. So don't pick something like we had an intern come in and she wanted to study sharks, and we walked into deep water to get to a mating herd of manatees. And the first thing out of her mouth was, do you think there's sharks in here? And I looked at her, I said, you do realize people who study sharks actually like sharks. She didn't get that this is not SeaWorld, this is not the living seas, this is not a protected environment. These are real animals that are active, that will take a chunk out of you. You need to be fearless. You need to find a way to look past that if this is what you want to do. If you don't like fire, don't become a firefighter. What you do is more important than what you make. So there's a lot of occupations where you're not going to make a lot. These are usually the ones people think are really cool. Make sure you understand that before you spend all your time getting an education for something that may not pay off in the end, but in my opinion, it's worth the risk. I definitely think, in my case, it paid off. Just to give you an idea of what's going on here, Fearless, this is a storm drain pipe, and this is me right here, and these are a couple of SeaWorld guys. I'm holding a flashlight. There's a manatee in here. That's not the bad part. The bad part for me is I'm claustrophobic. I don't care. If there's a manatee in there, I'll go anywhere. I also don't like spiders, and this is covered with thousands of black widow spiders. I no longer have a fear of spiders because I've been in this pipe about 7 different times getting about 10 different manatees out. That's what I mean by fearless. Not minding the smell. This is a big dead whale, and I smelled like this for about a week. I hated public speaking, so what do I end up doing as part of my job? I have a lot of public speaking to do, a lot of interviews with the media, not things I ever thought were associated with marine biology. Things I learned along the way and accommodated. Okay, so the rewards of my job, it's incredibly fulfilling. I can't imagine doing anything else. I'd love to be an astronaut, but they cram them into those tiny little spaces, and once again, claustrophobia prevents me from pursuing that dream. It's exciting and never dull. I am easily bored. I like change. I like not knowing what's going to happen from day to day. I get paid to do what I love. Not a lot, but I make a decent living. Very few people get to do it. Kind of cool when people ask what you do. If you want to talk to them, you say marine biologist. If you don't want to talk to them, you tell them you're a scientist. That usually shuts people down. It's extremely interesting. I wanted something that just constantly challenged me, something that I could constantly learn from. I'm always learning. I never stop learning. Even when I finish my doctorate, I'm going to take classes and continue to learn. There's never a day when there's not something. You never know everything. I interact with interesting people and animals. I get to work with some other really cool people. My favorite part, obviously, is the animals. I'm a big animal person. I'm making a difference. At the end of the day, I'm helping save an endangered species. I'm helping protect an environment that's critical to the lives of numerous other species. I'm not just taking home a paycheck. It's not about me. It's about what I leave behind. And it's not a desk job, although I have to be honest, during the summertime, I do spend a lot of time doing data. So if you're a scientist, data is an unavoidable part of your job. You just need to learn to suck it up and start liking it, because you do spend about half your time doing it. So my question to you is, what are you doing to further your education? Okay, are you just going to school and taking the classes and going through the motions, or are you doing some of the things that I mentioned? I promise you they will make a difference. If you're stagnant and you wonder, why can't I get a job? You need to look back at what you did, not what everybody else did. And does it make you happy? At the end of the day, these are the faces that I get to work with. I can't imagine a better job. Okay, and like I said, I work on a trust fund, so if you see these license plates around town, this is actually what pays for my job. Anybody have one of these license plates? Okay, I don't work for any of these. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them now. Yes. Okay, did everybody hear that? The question was, did I do husbandry work, which basically works with animals in captivity? No, I did not. I went straight from school to work for an emergency animal clinic to get trauma type work, and then I went straight to running the field station back in 1993. Excuse me? I would suggest it if you plan on going into a zoological type of job, definitely. In my job, it really doesn't make much of a difference. It was more important for me to work with wild animals for what I do. But if you want to go into a museum type situation or a zoological type of job, then yes, I would highly recommend it. Anyone else? Yes. Okay, so the question is, would the same qualifications for this job go for a jungle type biologist? To a certain extent, yes. All biology has basically the same base, but if you wanted to put yourself past somebody else's qualifications, you would look to see what type, like say you wanted to study a particular aspect of the jungle, you would want to definitely focus more of your effort to get additional education in that area, because somebody else is going to be doing that exact same thing. So I'm not sure, what a jungle biologist would do, to be honest. But if you knew you wanted to study, say, a specific species or a specific environment, you would want to gear additional coursework towards that particular field. I saw another. Yes.
Marine biologist, what community service or what internship do you think most further progress your positions or your experience in marine biology?
I think two things. My participation in the Marine Mammal Stranding Network as an undergrad put me in a great position in grad school to take it over and really work it. And I remember my research partner at the time said to me, wouldn't it be great if we could do this and get paid for it? She went on to become a vet. I went on to do this and get paid for it. But also volunteering with other grad students who were doing actual research, because I learned how to do research. I learned how to write proposals so that when the time came to go to grad school, which was another step in my education, I wasn't going in blind. I knew what it took, and before I even graduated, I had a proposal ready for graduate school. So it was a combination of volunteer work I did as part of the Stranding Network, which was really a great way to introduce myself to whether I could tolerate the smell, the blood, the death part of it, and I found that I was really very good at that. So it not only gave me good skills, it also gave me a reality check. Is this really what you want to be doing? Because this is what this is. So I would say those two things. Anyone else? Well, thank you very much for your time and attention. If you need to get in contact with me in any way, Dr. Spring and Ms. McDonald, they both have ways to contact me. Thank you. I should be allowed to pop up.